Dr. Andy Williams how he would like me to introduce him, but he said he'd rather do it for himself. So here is Dr. Andy Williams, and hopefully he's going to be telling us about the next stage in the plans of the biomedical campus. Thank you, Andy.
Awesome thing related, yeah. Thanks, Sam, and thank you for inviting me today. I'm actually quite overwhelmed by the number of people who've turned up. So I do some parish councils, and I brought 10 copies of a handout on the assumption that there'll be about 20 or 30 and you can sort of share. I do know if I did more copies, then the printer would have broken because I did it on my home printer. So instead of just handing handouts, we've agreed to show a couple of slides, which is a little bit less personal, but quite interesting. So my name is Andy Williams. I've lived in Cambridge for around 30 years, actually in South Cambridge, a village. I started here, like many people did, came up from London to work for a small biotech company called Cambridge Antibody Technology. It was a very successful company. All successful companies in Cambridge end up being acquired by somebody, if you know the background. And we were acquired by a company called AstraZeneca. I then spent the next 10 years plotting on how we could persuade AstraZeneca to come to Cambridge rather than send us up to Alderley Park. And that was relatively successful. And as a consequence, for the last 10 years, I've been managing AstraZeneca's move into Cambridge. Basically as a scientist, but then learning lots of other stuff and coming across Sam as we wonder about things, why there's so many cars on the road. And nobody thought about building a train station where there's a train line. So that's how I got involved in that. I actually theoretically retired last summer, and that's really failed quite badly. So I was taken on, so I'm doing a little bit of consulting for AstraZeneca. I'm still on all the business bodies, political bodies, and everything that comes with your AstraZeneca baggage, and for some reason I'm still doing those, and that can be interesting times. But I've also agreed to help CBC Limited, particularly around their communications and engagement, which has been an interesting journey. So I thought I'd start with where CBC, or Addenbrooke's, as we all really like to call it, how it's come along over the last few years. So back in 1929, Addenbrooke's has been opened up. Those who remember from that time, there was like a line of trees. And if you dare to look beyond the trees, there's sort of scrubland down to the train station. So there was a 2020 vision. The 2020 vision was we're going to expand Addenbrooke's to create a biomedical campus around Addenbrooke's, and that will benefit both Addenbrooke's itself in terms of improvements to healthcare, but will allow us to expand the role of the university and start discovering medicines as well as developing and using medicines in the community. So that's how it started. So amazingly, within only 10 years, we've gone from a big green field to lots of buildings. So that itself is really interesting. So then go on to the next slide, Sam. And here we are today. This is, you can ask questions in a bit. What we're going to do is I'm going to do about 10-15 minutes just of introduction, and then we're going to hear from Barry, and then we're going to see how the discussion goes in terms of any questions you have. That's state of the art. I only did that this morning. I only finished my arrows this morning. So it shows the current developments, and it shows the things that are coming in the short to medium term. So those of you where the cranes are building what's called a multi-occupancy building over there. They'll be building some amenity space for us going to go over there. And there's some new wards going up for Addenbrooke's, which is associated with increasing capacity ahead of them actually rebuilding the hospital in due course. The campus has been seen as a great success, which is interesting. It's a great success in the terms of treatment. So it's seen as at least UK leading, if not world leading, in treatment of patients. And it's taking new innovative therapies and using them very early, and it's working with other occupants on the campus to actually deliver those better. So it's seen as a great success in that way. It's also seen as a great success from an economic perspective. So an economic review was done last year, and it's multi-billion tax revenues going into the government as a consequence of activities going on the campus. So that's both interesting. So it's seen as a success from a medical perspective and a healthcare perspective. It's seen as a success from an economic perspective. But if you look closely at this map, you can see several things. There's some bright new shiny buildings here and here. Outcomes is a shiny building, bright new shiny buildings here. And then you see the existing hospital campus, which is 60s breeze blocks and concrete. And there's something not quite right about a campus which is developed with an old, tired, knackered part, it says to camera, and a brand new shiny pod. So that's something that really isn't really quite acceptable to actually to anybody on the campus. And so we've got, I'll not show you the 2050 vision, that was going to be the next slide. So what we decided was...
Put your microphone a little bit further from your mouth.
Further from my mouth, is that better?
No, it's all further away.
Further away?
No, that no.
Is that going to work?
I think sometimes it's horrible.
I suspect people at the back won't hear it. I'll tell you what,
Sorry, it's reverberating.
I will stop doing it like this because I can talk quite loud if Chris can hear me at the back. You can hear me at the back. Sorry, I did hear it as well. So, there's things about the campus which aren't great. One is there's the old stock and the new stock. That's not great. Several other things though. There was nowhere really on the campus for people to collaborate. So there was an intention in the 2020 vision to have better collaboration amongst the campus. So what we've got instead is individual organisations kind of doing their own thing, and that's both within a social context and a science context. So that's not very good. We know that the campus has some interesting travel challenges. I talked about the train station, which is a good thing, but effectively it has trouble with both the travel and actually how you get about the campus itself. And what I've been more interested in more recently is its relationships with its neighbours, and even within itself, is not particularly strong. It's generally gone its own way and done its own thing. That's not just with the local community, incidentally, that's also with the councils as well. It's seen as quite a complex site with lots of individual components doing those things. So the campus occupants knew that. They developed the 2020 vision obviously had run out of steam. We'd got beyond 2020. So a new 2050 vision was created by everybody in the campus, and that came out last year. And that described a future for the campus which addressed the issues that we just talked about a moment ago. We passed that 2050 vision around our local communities, our local councillors. There was most of the feedback was generally positive. They could see the benefits of healthcare that had come out of this. They didn't think there was enough focus on the hospitals. Remember, it's the hospitals that we need improving. And they didn't see enough focus on sustainability. So both those things were considered as part of the 2050 vision. So what we've decided to do is the main campus occupants have now formed a new organisation called CBC Limited, which I'm part of. It's formed of the 3 hospitals, so Papworth, Addenbrooke's and the CPFT, acronym I can't remember, the university, 2 of the big organisations, ABCAM and AstraZeneca, and the Laboratory Microbiology. They formed a new organisation to deliver the 2050 vision. In addition to them, there is a community representative there. And the community representative at the moment is David Plank from Trumpton Residents, but that will rotate over time. On the first step of, this is not a 2050 vision just for the campus, it needs to be for the wider community, engagement, all those sorts of things along. It'd be nice to have David here. We've got Barry here, who's also now part of the community group, which I'll explain in a moment. But David sits in all the meetings of CBC Limited, so he can see the challenges we face, how we get to where we want to get to. We're looking at 4 areas within the 2050 vision. The first is to increase vibrancy on the site at the moment. So the site's not very vibrant, it still looks a bit windy, and vibrancy not just in terms of on the campus, but within our local neighbourhood. So hopefully you've seen, and if not, Chris will advertise it in his next magazine, improved opportunities for the community to interact with the campus. A number of things. So what you had is each individual organisation was doing some stuff. So step 1, tell the different organisations on the campus what they're doing. Then you can join each other's things, and then advertise those with your local community. And I have got a picture in there, we won't show, but the choir is a good example. So a choir has been set up. It's not a choir that, apparently if you call it a choir, it implies that you're going to perform. It's not a performing choir, it's just a chance to go along with a qualified person and do that. And that's been open to all the campus occupants and those in the community as well. There have been mindfulness sessions, yoga sessions, walking tours, and all those sorts of things going on. It's a bit clunky at the moment, so all the websites that we need to make that success aren't in place. But there is a place you can go to, an Eventbrite site, where you can go and book yourself up for those, and you're very much welcome to do so. And like I say, Chris is writing an article at the moment for the next magazine, which will explain how you can get more involved in those. So step 1, make the existing site a little bit more open and accessible to people. Step 2, sort out the transport. That's a long-term opportunity. Both happy to go into that in great detail. It's one of the things I sadly know quite a lot about. transport onto the site, of which we're only a partner, but actually just getting around the site is really, really difficult. So there's a wayfinding project going on, which will provide consistent signs all over the campus, colour-coded, so people can get around the campus more carefully. And for once, the wayfinding activity did involve an engagement with the community to see what you'd like to see when you come onto the campus to enable that. So there will be some way, it may not have involved everybody, but it did involve some people. It's baby steps, that's where we're getting to. So I'd say the travel, the transport needs to be sorted out. Forgotten what the third one is, Sam. Oh, the next one is actually improving engagement with the community. Now, there's various ways we've done that. We set up a community liaison group. Barry sits on the community liaison group. So the 3 members of CBC Limited, bearing in mind it is just 3 people, work with Barry from Queen Edith's, we work with David from Truncheon Residents Association, and we have a couple of representatives from Queen Edith's. And we meet on a regular basis to update on where we are on the 20 Vision, to get feedback from various residents on the challenges, like travel, that you all face, to try and start to build those relationships more effectively. So we are trying through both membership of CBC Limited and through a CBC Community Liaison Group to improve that relationship. We've tried not to stop there. We now have just established a local councils liaison group. For those of you who are in the know, it takes about 4 or 5 different councils or 4 or 5 different governance bodies to get anything done on travel. And so we've now established, and not just travel, sustainability, water, actually everything. Everything is a very complicated picture around Cambridge. And so what we've done from the CBC side is we've tried to provide that single voice into the authorities. So CBC Limited now theoretically are the voice of all these partners. Now the individual partners will still go and talk to the county and the authorities when they need to. We've created a single voice, and alongside that the councils have created a single committee so we can jointly get together, and it's actually mainly around practical things. So I know Sam has a great love of our train station, which is going here, but it involves both County Council, South Cambridge District Council, GCSP, GCP, and it will require all those bodies to work collectively to actually deliver the solution we want. So we've now brought that body together as well, which is a good thing. We now go out more regularly to events like this. You are by far the best populated of those if it was a competition. But we've talked also to Great Shelford Parish Council, we've talked to Truncheon Residents Association, we've been to the Southern Area Committee. At the Southern Area Committee, we offered the opportunity for all councillors to come and visit us at the Biomedical Campus. There has been limited uptake from our local councillors to attend those visits to CBC, but we hope that will be something which we can encourage more in the future. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a better relationship between the campus and the campus and our wider community. The final part of the 2050 vision, which is sort of like the sting in the tail, if you like, in order to deliver the 2050 vision, the campus came up with what would need to be done to make it world leading. World leading both from a hospital perspective, but also the life science sector around it. So they've come up with what's called a holistic plan and a master plan, all the things you think you need for a world leading campus. And they've compared that with world leading campuses all over the world and identified all the things that aren't there which really should be, which includes incidentally good community relations. But they've also identified things like there is no conference centre, there's not even a cafe, there isn't a pub, there isn't anywhere really to meet. The transport issues are a mess. All those things should need to be resolved through the 2050 vision. We have an antiquated ANPR system used for the campus, which works sometimes, but doesn't work always, which is often a hot topic. The holistic plan for 2050 vision said, in order to deliver it, there needs to be more space. Now, on this map here, you can see the Phase 2 land, which is already approved in the local plan. It's being developed out by a company called Prologis. There's Phase 3 land here, and now there's a proposal in the Lotus local plan for potentially another Phase 4 on the side of there. Yeah. So, and that's the feedback we've had from the community. So let me just come back a bit. So CBC Limited do not own any land, and will have no decision on whether the land is allocated in the local plan. So what we've had is the authorities, GCSP, included a potential further Phase 4 land, which goes all the way up to Grenham's Road, but they said that can only be done if it's believed that it will enhance the campus and you can demonstrate the enhancement of that campus. So we're now in a very strange world where we have a developer which I think I will come on to who the developer is and how that works. There's a developer promoting a piece of land that the campus now needs to try and influence so that if it is agreed, it will be developed in the right way. So it becomes an integrated plan within the campus. So that's pretty much where we are. What I would say, and I understand the reservations, when this was presented to the community group and David Plank, his first one was there's no justification going to the Greenbelt. Why can't you do it in other ways? Why don't you identify the existing site? You can't demonstrate the need for this. What we said when we put our first plans in the 2050 vision saying this is what a holistic plan looked like, we put in all those objections at the same time within the same document. So this is what we think needs to be done, but the community have told us this. And so we've been in this interesting position, which Barry will go into, of where on one hand, the campus, CBC Limited, have a long-term plan 2050 vision, including a lot of space. But on CBC Limited included a residents rep who is vehemently opposed to it on behalf of the residents. So that's where we've got to. I think I'll hand over to Barry at this stage.
All of us are opposed.
That's all right. I don't.
Yeah, I think there are people who do.
I think that's fair point. I think what I would say is that the knee-jerk reaction, given the amount of growth that's going on at the moment and the implications it has for transport, things like that, basically have given growth in Cambridge a difficult sell. What I would say is the 2050 vision, which has been produced by the campus, is enormously attractive to international companies, life science companies, and would enable the whole of the hospital campus to be regenerated and generated into phase 3. So the advantage for the hospital of this is by having the university primarily, but also the companies associated with it, help them in their discussions with the government to get new projects. So, for example, on the proposed cancer hospital, the university are putting significant funds on that because there'll be research done in the hospital. AstraZeneca are going to base some of our employees within the cancer hospital as well. So there's ways through which partnering with the university and business with the hospital estate can get replenished in a way that otherwise wouldn't be. So the plan for 2050, which wasn't articulated well enough, and that came back from residents as well, is if you're going to have a 2050 vision and you're going to look for this expanded space, you will need to be able to demonstrate that it's having a significantly positive impact on the hospitals, and the provision of the hospital will increase significantly. So they're the pros and cons. You're right, I think it's a mixed view. The problem with the mixed view is, at the moment, the challenges of growth are overcoming the potential of all the opportunities of growth, and they haven't been explained very well.
Are any now questions?
You can. I'm just conscious that Barry's going to feed back some thoughts that he's had from this. I'm happy to take questions whenever you
Can I suggest that we let Barry speak,
Please do.
and then we'll try and convene a kind of three-way conversation, if that's all right with everybody. If you can hold your thoughts, I'm sure you will. Barry, do you?
Okay.